Lovely. So, hello, welcome to this University of Leicester PG Spotlight session on human health. My name is Alicia. I'm the UK Postgraduate Recruitment Officer here at the university. And I'm going to be hosting today's session. My colleague Sam is also on hand in the Q&A function to sort of organise and arrange any questions that you might have. So please just take a moment to familiarise yourself with the team's layout. The Q&A function is located in the top right part of your screen. You'll find a button up there that says Q&A. Please feel free to use that. Say hello, let us know where you're joining from, and perhaps a bit about what you're looking for from today's session. So today I'm joined by some staff from the University of Leicester in the Schools of Biological Sciences, Health Sciences and Psychology. And so we're going to really be exploring kind of what master's study is like at Leicester and perhaps sort of routes into the future as well. So whether you may be interested in studying for a PhD too. So just so you know as well, these sessions are being recorded. You'll be able to watch them back online shortly after the session. And we do have a range of PG spotlights taking place throughout the week. So if you miss any of our other sessions, you will be able to watch them soon after. So just to get started, I'm going to hand over to our panel just to introduce themselves with their name, a bit about their role, and perhaps something interesting about their work or their area of research. So John, am I okay to start with you?
Sure, yes, thank you, Alicia. So my name is John Schwabe. I'm a professor in the Department of Molecular and Cell Biology. I'm also director of one of Leicester's research institutes. So I see a lot of master's students come through my research lab, and it's always a pleasure to host them for roughly 6 months while they complete their projects. So that's why I'm on the call today, maybe to tell you about research projects in biological sciences.
Fab, thank you, John. And shall we hand over to Stephanie?
Hi, my name is Stephanie Hubbard. I'm an associate professor in population health sciences. I'm the director of education for our postgraduate programs, which we offer sort of a fairly diverse set of programs, some aimed at healthcare professionals, some aimed at sort of more quantitative graduates. So we have sort of different types of master's courses. We also have distance learning as well as campus-based programs. I can talk about sort of some of the research we do because I'm the program leader for our MSc in medical statistics as well. So I've got various hats, but I know a bit about sort of the research and how it feeds into our postgraduate taught programs.
Lovely, thank you, Stephanie. And Catherine, I'll hand over to you.
Hi, I'm Catherine Steele. So I'm an associate professor in our School of Psychology and Vision Sciences. I'm also the academic director for postgraduate studies in psychology. As Stephanie said, similar to her area, we have campus-based and distance learning programs. We have a conversion course which gives a professional accreditation to our students. And we have quite a range of options for both campus-based and distance learning programs. So my own area of research is around workplace wellbeing, but we have students working in a whole range of areas, so mostly in applied psychology, so actually taking psychological knowledge and applying it in a whole variety of different settings. And that's one of the things that I think as a team we find really exciting, having kind of that real world impact through the postgraduate research that our students do.
Amazing, thank you. And so I guess just to kick things off, the first sort of question I've got for you all is, can you tell our audience maybe about some research themes? I know, Catherine, you've just touched on a few there, but research themes, topics or areas that perhaps recent master's students have been looking into, or have there been any interesting findings, perhaps maybe in the last couple of years that your students have contributed towards? I don't know who wants to take it first.
I'm happy to, if no one else is going to jump forward. The Department of Molecular Cell Biology and also the Institute for Structure and Chemical Biology in Leicester is really strong in understanding all the biological processes that happen within the nucleus. So that's the regulation of genes, how genes are switched on and switched off, how our genetic material is damaged and repaired, DNA damage and repair, splicing, the inactivation of X chromosomes. So all of these gene regulatory aspects we study in many different ways. We study them by traditional biochemical approaches. We study them using super resolution microscopy and cell biology. We study them using chemical biology approaches so that we can perturb and also fix problems in this. And this all extends. We have a massively state-of-the-art research facilities, including a £4.5 million cryo-electron microscope, which we recently acquired, and super resolution microscopes, and all the techniques you would like to study. So when students come into the lab, they really have an experience of being in a research team, working at the forefront of their fields. And that gives students a great idea as to whether research is their thing and whether they want to go on and think about doing a PhD later on. And I was saying earlier that a number of the master's project students that have come through my lab, but also through many of the other groups in the department, do stay and do PhDs with us or move elsewhere and do PhDs.
That's great. Thanks, John. I mean, also from a personal level, I don't think I mentioned this previously, but I was actually a member of the Institute of Structural and Chemical Biology at Leicester. So recently completed my PhD in chemistry there, which was really exciting. So I can attest to, all of the great facilities and just, a really great experience and such a hands-on and great community feel within the institute, which, was great to be a part of. So maybe Stephanie or Catherine, did you want to kind of come in off the back of that?
Yeah, I'll talk about a bit about what we do in population health sciences. So we have a number of broad research themes across population health sciences that include epidemiology, medical statistics, public health, primary care, health services research, psychiatry. So lots of different areas of focus. And so some of our PGT programs feed into each of these areas in terms of their research projects. So just to give you some examples from our medical statistics students, we've had students on their master's course producing our Shiny apps to conduct advanced statistical methods to make it easier for researchers and funders to explore using these sorts of methods. We have people applying and extending sort of methods that have been recently developed into new application areas, and we've had students who've published in both of those areas. Our quality and safety in healthcare focuses a lot on we have a group on infant mortality and morbidity studies, and quality and safety healthcare see a lot of examples of that, and some of the students work in projects in that area because it's something that's been sort of in the news in the UK fairly recently as an area that needs improving. Diabetes is our distance learning programme, and at Leicester we have a diabetes research centre that produces some very high level research, and our students have the opportunity to work with the researchers in there, and we've had students again talking at conferences and presenting their results through papers and posters at conferences. So that's just a few of the examples that we offer.
That's fantastic.
In population health sciences.
That's brilliant. I'm wondering, Stephanie and John, maybe there is some perhaps overlaps between your schools with some of that work that you do, maybe especially within the diabetes field, perhaps, Stephanie.
I mean, I think that there is overlap, certainly. I mean, our group have close links with biology in terms of helping to supervise students. I mean, and I've actually taught statistics on some of the master's programs. So
brilliant.
yeah, so we do have overlap.
I think that's one of the strengths of Leicester. We're not an enormous university, we're fairly small, so there's a lot of communication between different areas. And so we can offer a whole breadth of expertise from very translational expertise, clinical expertise, through to very basic and fundamental sciences. And so I think yeah, it's quite easy for master students to get a real feel for a great breadth of areas.
Absolutely, definitely. And then, Catherine, did you kind of want to chat a bit about your courses?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the area from our school that most relates to our postgraduate programs is health, wellbeing, and aging. So that's what we teach mostly within our master's courses. And I'm just thinking of some of the projects. So our students, we give them quite a lot of freedom in terms of what they want to research. So we have sort of staff suggestions in terms of what people might want to support with. But a lot of our students, for example, on our business and occupational psychology programs come with organisational funding. So they need to do a project within their workplace. So we've had students recently looking at things like menopause in the workplace and how that's being addressed. We're looking to publish a paper with a student at the minute who did some research on late diagnosis of ADHD and the impact that's had on women's careers. So quite a variety. Teachers and resilience has been quite a popular topic. We get quite a lot of educators on our programs as well, looking to learn more about management perhaps, or more about psychology and behaviour. And we've heard quite a lot around sort of burnout in the different public sector professions that some of our students have taken on. Coaching is another big one, and again relates probably to the team's expertise. So looking at coaching in organisations. So a really, really, really big variety. But again, as others have said, we've had students that have published. We like to, particularly we're trying to do a lot more of with our master students, is look for opportunities to get their research published, and also conferences as well. So the British Psychological Society does several conferences each year that we try and encourage students to attend and present their work just to get into that practice. So there's lots of opportunities for that as well.
Yeah, fantastic. I feel like some of the key themes that you were all talking about were really things that we actually do often see in the media, things that are quite topical, things that are very sort of relevant to things that are happening in our society at the moment, which is really, I think, super exciting to see, and something that I think Leicester does really well, does really, really well at, and being in that sort of forefront of new knowledge, new research, which is really, really exciting. And I guess from doing your master's study, that's going to hopefully feed into these sorts of careers and avenues.
I think as just responding to that, I think as a postgraduate student as well, you're coming in with a different range of life experiences and kind of work experiences. So you're more aware of sort of what's going on and more aware as well. And you've got those different opportunities to really engage with sort of real world problems and real world issues, whatever you're studying in. And I think for me, I think that was a really exciting part of my postgraduate journey, was just being a little bit more involved in the, as I said, for me, the application of knowledge is really important. So generation of, and then also thinking about impact as well, which I think as a postgrad student, you can do really well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I guess this is something that John alluded to already, is, maybe recent graduates from your master's courses, what have they kind of gone on to do next? Is it, do lots of students go into research? I mean, it's something that I felt was right for me at the time, that I was, had this keen pursuit for knowledge and wanted to continue kind of on that journey. Do you find that lots of students in both the health sciences and the psychology side of things, do they also go on to PhD study, or are there other careers or industries that maybe perhaps quite commonplace for people to explore?
Yeah, I think if I talk about our program, if I talk about the medical statistics slightly apart from the other programs, so medical statistics, we probably have about 50% of the students go into the pharmaceutical industry to work. The other 50% tend to stay in universities, sometimes in clinical trials units, or stay on research posts. Several start on funded PhDs because there are lots of opportunities to get funded PhDs. Some start on research posts and then enroll on PhDs within a few years. So, they're the key career options for our students, and that there's certainly no shortage. In fact, there's way more positions and PhDs than we can fill from our master's course at the moment. And it's not just the UK, it's across the world as well. Our other programs tend to be focused on healthcare professionals, so that a lot of the students who come on our courses, particularly something like the diabetes distance learning, tend to be working in healthcare. And they use the other programs to enhance their research skills and to give them new opportunities when they've finished, so that they can do more high-level research and get more involved in research. So it gives them very good career opportunities, having done a master's program at the end of it.
Absolutely, yeah, that sounds great. And I guess it's really good to kind of look at that distinction between your different courses from such a diverse range of them as well.
Yeah. Yeah, they're very different graduates coming into the program, so different opportunities at the end of it, certainly.
Definitely. And Catherine, how about from a psychology side?
So we have sort of two main streams. So we have an MSc in psychology, which is actually what we call a conversion course. So it gives you this British Psychological Society accreditation, graduate basis for accreditation, which is what you actually would get with an undergraduate psychology degree. So it's aimed at students perhaps that didn't do psychology at first, but actually have now decided they want to have a career in psychology. So that program is very broad. And a lot of the students that come onto that are looking at a professional career in psychology. So to become a clinical psychologist, a health psychologist, or a counselling psychologist, so to go down one of the named sort of pathways. So for them, their next steps would probably actually be another master's or a doctoral program, but a professional doctorate. And we've had students that have gone on to do clinical psychology training, that have gone on to health psychology programs, and some will come from that onto our occupational psychology program that we do at Leicester, so actually stay with us for 4 years. And we have had 2 students in the last 3 years actually stay with us to do a PhD. So it's not necessarily just a practice route. You know, it depends very much what the student decides they want to do across the programme. And then the students from our occupational psychology program and the psychology of work would probably be most likely to go and do a professional training route. So again, a professional doctorate in occupational psychology. A lot of those students are already in careers, for example, management consultancy, human resources, or in a sort of management role themselves, and are looking to progress their career around that sort of people management side of things. So, but again, we have had a student who's with us at the moment from that program who is doing a PhD looking at coaching in higher education. And that was from one of the, we've recently been quite lucky, I think, within psychology at Leicester, and secured some of the PhD funding, studentship funding that we've had from the university in the last couple of years. So she's actually doing one of those programs and looking at, say, how coaching can be used within higher education teaching. And she came off that occupational psychology. She was a consultant before, so quite a change of career. So
Yeah.
all sorts of options for students.
Absolutely. I feel like this conversation is really highlighting the diversity of the routes that you can go down, but also perhaps is highlighting to me the routes that different people are coming in at different positions. So actually, the people that may feature on your master's program might not all kind of have come from similar walks of life from you originally, which is quite an exciting thing, I think, in itself. And again, Catherine, lends to that, bringing your own spin, bringing your own ideas into and your own life, experiences into the projects that you're getting involved with, which is something I perhaps hadn't considered before we had this conversation. So, and then I guess, John, obviously you mentioned lots of students will, and from your experiences, students will go through to studying for a PhD. But are there other avenues that students might explore? I mean, I know from personal experience, I've had many friends kind of move into industry. So whether that be working sort of for GlaxoSmithKline perhaps, or AstraZeneca, very much from a chemistry side of view. But yeah, maybe some other options.
So I think that's the great thing about doing an MSc, and with a large practical component that will tell you whether research is your thing, whether that's what you want to do. You get also, yes, as you say, Alicia, a lot of our students go out into industry as well. Some decide that research is too challenging or not fast-paced enough. But the majority, in my experience, actually come in not sure whether they're going to like research, and then they really do. And so they want to either stay and do a PhD, or they want to go and work in the industry where they're doing research in a slightly different context. I mean, I've had students who've gone off around the world to do PhDs. So I think our Leicester MSc really can equip you to do what you want, whatever you want to do. So I think that the other day I was a chief scientific officer from a company wanted to negotiate whether they could use some equipment of ours. And then I realized when we started the Zoom call that he was actually a former Leicester student who'd done an MSc here. Yeah. So that was quite fun to see that he'd made it right to the top of an industry. Yeah. So the world's your oyster.
Absolutely.
But MSc is a great place to start.
Yeah, definitely. That's really great. And also to have that idea that really you can take qualifications from the University of Leicester and they can take you to many different countries, many different avenues beyond being in Leicester. But then Catherine also mentioned we have people who kind of are in the system for a long time. I know that was me. I did my undergraduate at Leicester, so spent a good 8 years studying here. But it's great to see that we have both sides of those coins.
I did my MSc at Leicester. I did the MSc that I now lead.
Yeah.
a long while ago. We've actually got 2 other tutors on the programme who are also graduates. So, we don't let you go easily.
Same here as well. I did my MSc, but probably a long time before you did. So mine Mine was in the mid-1980s, so that's how long our MSc in medical statistics has been running. And again, we have a lot of graduates working within the department from all of our programs. So it's a very good recruiting ground, as well as people going elsewhere as well.
Yeah, it's really great to hear. I feel like, every time I'm doing something like this, I meet more and more people who have in some way experienced Leicester, whether that be through friends and family who've studied here, or they've perhaps studied at Leicester, taken a different avenue and then come back actually again. So it's really, really great to hear all of that actually. And you'll be surprised how many times I do hear that from people in a wide range of roles at the university. So that's really great. And something else I wanted to kind of perhaps draw back to that I think was mentioned towards the start of the session were things to do with networking events, maybe symposiums, field trips, that type of vein. And I know that we talked about maybe external facing conferences, but are there things that take place within your schools respectively that kind of encourage that growth of students' skill sets, so opportunities for perhaps presenting, perhaps opportunities for networking or anything like that?
Do you want me to start first?
Yeah, that'd be great, Stephanie. Thank you.
I mean, we invite all the PGT students, are all invited to all our sort of internal seminars, sort of both sort of department-wide and within our specific research groups. So they're invited to relevant research seminars so they can actually experience other people delivering talks on research. In terms of offering them opportunities to speak themselves, we don't do so many of them. They tend to be within the programs. So within our programs, we do quite lots of practice in terms of presenting their work to other students and staff members who teach on the course. But there are some opportunities. So the MedStat students have the opportunity to go to a pharmaceutical run careers event that talks about it has recent graduates talking about their experiences and what they've been doing, not just in the pharmaceutical industry, but in universities as well. So they have that sort of opportunity. And I think within the other courses, there are opportunities to sort of attend conferences where there is funding available or it's free to attend. I think the students are encouraged to attend those sorts of things. There's also, in terms of medical statistics, a young statisticians conference that enables people to present their work in a fairly safe environment with other people at the same level of their career.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think that's something I benefited from, in my sort of master's research here as well. It was really key kind of getting out there and actually hearing other people present. And that from that, then you can develop your own style, you pick up tips and things that you may wish to then use in your presentation style going forward. So actually, I think those opportunities are really fantastic, and I would encourage any one of our attendees who are kind of watching that actually when you do start your master's study and beyond, consider getting involved with those conferences, especially the sort of the young conferences that you mentioned. So those who are perhaps earlier in their careers, they're really, like you said, safe spaces. They're really constructive and supportive environments. I've found that they were really beneficial in kind of not only getting your confidence up and your ability to present, but also having that networking with other people and finding out where their pathways have come from, where they're perhaps headed to. So I found those really useful as well, which is really great to hear that this happens across other schools, because obviously I came from one very specific area, but really fantastic to hear it happens elsewhere. So maybe John or Catherine, did you want to kind of jump in on that? I don't know if
I would say that the master students are always become, an integral part of the research team where they're doing their research project. That means that they participate in the regular group meetings. They will present progress at these group meetings, which is really good. They'll see other people present. They're also part of the community of the institute or the department. So the seminars and the external and internal speakers that come and talk at those, that's open to the master's students, and they're strongly encouraged to attend. And I think that's really good. They get a feel for a wider, broader research community out there. And sometimes projects go extremely well. And I've had 2 master's students who've got their names on papers as a result of their project, which has been fantastic to see. One of them, I have to say, was very disappointing and decided not, he was really gifted in the lab, but decided he wanted to become a medic. So he did postgraduate medicine after the MSc, which was a bit disappointing. The other one is now his own research leader in the United States. So
Wow.
those have been quite good.
Yes, yeah, that's brilliant. No, that's really good. Yeah, I think something you both touched on as well is that community feeling and that sense of sort of becoming part of that research team, becoming part of the fold. You're not necessarily the difference between perhaps being an undergraduate student and postgraduate, which I think I'll touch on in sort of my next question, is something that we can maybe unpick a bit more shortly. But Catherine, I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, I mean, echoing everything that Stephanie and John have both said, really. I mean, within our programs, again, taking this sort of differentiation, our distance learning students we do an internal conference, which is 3 days every October. And what we do there is because ours they're both 2-year part-time programs. So we have the first years, and for them, that event is more of like an induction event, so sort of to get to know each other, to get to know the tutors, to understand the systems and the VLE that we use. For our second years, it's an introduction to their dissertation. So we give them sort of indication as to what projects they can do, how to go about it, ethics applications. And then in the last 2 years, we've actually been inviting our alumni back as well. So the students that will have just graduated, actually not quite graduated, just submitted their dissertations, and then they're going to graduate in the January. So, and that's just such a nice opportunity to have those 3 years together, as well as the tutors. And we hold it at a place called College Court in Leicester, and staff actually normally stay as well. So everybody's in the same place for 3 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then we have the Saturday on campus. So our DL students actually get to see the campus, see the library, and just sort of we talk about postgraduate student identity, because I think, obviously undergraduate numbers, you've probably been around a larger numbers, it's a much bigger student body, but I think postgraduate student identity is really important to develop as well, again, as others have said. We have a new campus-based program opening this year, in September, which is it's the same as our DL program, but just a campus-based 1-year full-time MSc in psychology. And for that, we're already talking about how those students can integrate more with our PGR community. So our PGR students, for example, have an annual research conference, which we're hoping that those students will be able to go to, just to provide that connection again with a different group of students. I think it is so you said you're going to talk about the difference between undergraduate and postgraduate. It is different, and I think having that community of sort of peers around you is a really important part of being successful as a master's student. But yeah, I don't want to take your next.
No,
No,
that's great, and I think it lends itself quite nicely to sort of that next topic of sometimes and often actually when I'm out at various different recruitment events, I'm asked questions, how does what perhaps you studied at undergraduate level, how does that vary? What does the timetable look like? What does my day look like, my week? And actually, how does that relationship change with the people around you? And I think we have, again, started to have some of those conversations, especially John, Catherine, we were talking about that community sense, talking about that being brought in with everybody as part of a team. I think that's definitely something I try and convey across, but perhaps there are other ways that you might define this or sort of showcase what's going on in your schools, perhaps.
I mean, I would say it's growing up, going from an undergraduate to master's. You have a much more individual experience. You have much more one-to-one direct contact with other people, instead of having things more demonstrated to you or done in large group practicals. You're doing them, one-on-one with guidance from either the research lab leader or a postgraduate. In terms of the taught material, I think that just the same way as going from being at school to going to university, that's a big step up. It's another step up to do a master's. It's much more. You can focus on areas of your own interest. You can develop areas that are particularly interesting to you. You're not necessarily just having to cram the same level of breadth of material as an undergraduate. I think it's an entirely positive and natural growth experience into the research.
Absolutely. Yeah, Catherine, I can see you nodding away a lot with what John's saying.
I mean, I think what you said about that step up from school to university and then from undergraduate to postgraduate, and I think one of the only things I'd add to that is it's very much about the relationships that change, just like your relationship with your teacher, where you called them Mr. or Mrs. something, probably compared to your relationship then with your undergraduate lecturers. I would say I have a different relationship with my undergraduate students compared to the postgraduates, and there's all kinds of reasons for that. But I think that's maybe one of the things I wish I'd knew more as a postgrad student, because I went straight on from undergrad to postgrad, and I think perhaps if I'd have recognised that different type of relationship, that would have helped me a little bit more. And I think, you know, it's I think, as John said, you're more involved as a postgrad student. You've already got that knowledge, and I think it's important to have that kind of self-esteem and self-worth that you're coming in with an undergraduate degree. You've come in with a motivation to do something that's a little bit more specialised, and you've got that opportunity being in smaller groups with postgrads. I mean, our undergraduates in psychology are sort of 300-400 plus, you know, and we take probably about 35 to 40 on postgraduates. That's quite different in terms of the learning experience. So you inevitably are going to have a very different relationship. I mean, whether you're campus-based or distance learning, you've just got a different sort of access. I think perhaps in terms of the teaching as well, you know, yes, we do teach facts and we teach knowledge, but it's also about, you know, bringing that knowledge in with you and not sort of forgetting it, particularly if you've done a modular undergraduate degree. It's trying to remember the skills that you've learned and to develop those. And just taking a different stance perhaps on the knowledge and facts as a postgraduate. You know, we're looking for you to critique it, we're looking for you to add to it, we're looking for you to evaluate knowledge rather than just kind of learning the knowledge. It's just taking those sort of third year probably undergraduate skills that little bit further and really developing your own perspective and feeling confidence in your own perspective with the knowledge that you already have. Perhaps those are the main differences I'd see.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I think that going from that phase of perhaps being in a learning state to the development state, and like you said, that critiquing element, I think that is a big transition that's sometimes difficult to convey to students who are considering postgraduate study. It's not as passive perhaps as, you know, going to your undergraduate lectures and absorbing that information and being in that real learning phase, you know, where you're almost feeling like a sponge. You're just trying to take the information in and keep up with that. Actually, I think from that postgraduate side of things, you've got your taught modules alongside your other components, and that's very much more about your development. That's from personal experience. It's how I've felt, and lots of, you know, colleagues, I think peers would also have said the same. So I guess, Stephanie, any other sort of sentiments alongside that?
No, I sort of agree with I agree with all that. I mean, most of our courses are fairly specialised now, so you're going more to specialise in a particular area. We do a lot of developing research skills. So there's a lot about, yeah, you have to be able to critique things, but we try and develop that as we go through. Lots of communication. We get people working a lot together in our programmes, doing group work. There's very few exams across any of our postgraduate programs. Everything is sort of an applied nature, sort of working on coursework, you know, and some more independent learning in a sense, but then also working with others. So you're developing all those different types of skills throughout and applying them to sort of real world examples, which is sometimes quite difficult to do at undergraduate level. And I think that the important thing about the smaller groups is really important. We had 3 students on our MSc MedStats last year who came from the same university and the same degree program, and they had never met each other before they came on the course. So that's 3 years, and you know, you don't even meet the other students on your course, whereas I think on our programs we have much smaller numbers and it's much nicer to feel part of a community. You know, see the staff, they want to talk to you, they want to develop you as an individual.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, are any of you able to kind of maybe comment on what that sort of timetable or that week looks like? It might be fairly different across the schools. I'm not entirely sure sort of how that maybe operates, but in terms of that, what, you know, time commitment, obviously, Catherine, you can, and Stephanie, you can talk about your distance learning programs might also feature different timetables, I guess. So yeah, maybe any thoughts on that?
We tend to teach our programs in blocks of teaching. So some of the programs you will be taught for a week block from Monday to Friday. Others will be 2 days a week. Distance learning, you will do certain modules at a time. So it's very different to a lot of undergraduate programs in terms of our modules, that you're not taught in these long modules that last a whole semester with an exam at the end. It's now, you know, a week of teaching on a topic and that you can really focus on, and you spend time developing your skills in that topic before moving on to the next topic.
Yeah, that's really good to know. And again, that difference in distinguishing between the undergraduate and postgraduate experience is really crucial, I think. Yeah, lots of inquirers, get in touch because it's hard to sometimes visualize or contextualize what your week will be. So I could also see, Catherine, I guess, do you operate in a similar way with psychology in that you have the block teaching, or?
But yeah, I say our main campus-based program will launch this September, and the plan is to try and offer all of the modules across either 2 or 3 days, and then recognizing that a lot of postgraduates work or have other caring commitments that they need to
Yeah.
sort of fit in. So rather than just having to come in for an hour 5 days a week,
Yes.
we're trying to make that possible. On our distance learning program, again, we teach in blocks of either 7 or 14 weeks. So each module, depending on the number of credits for the module. And what we do with that is really leave it up to the students. So we do have folders, which has got what we suggest but we suggest a schedule of week by week. But, I know that for some of our students that doesn't work. And actually what they will do is take a week or 10 days of annual leave, or they'll have sort of work where they can work from home for a week and kind of balance it differently. And they'll do the whole lot in a sort of block period of time. And I think that very much depends on you as a learner and understanding yourself a little bit more in terms of how you work. We have sort of weekly discussion boards, and we have live sessions that are optional for students, again, trying to recognise the needs of distance learners being and postgraduates again being perhaps a little bit different, and just the number of things that you might be juggling are different.
Absolutely. We are, we're very aware that we work with different audiences when we talk about our postgraduate build-up and our makeup of students that join us. So actually that flexibility is really useful. And like you said, the way that people learn is very different as well, which is really helpful. And then I guess, John, maybe touching on, I guess obviously you have quite a large part in the research focus. So students typically researching in your lab, every day. How does that kind of work?
So the organization is really quite simple. So the course kicks off with sort of from September to December with some taught modules, which gets everyone up to speed with the common background. And then at that point, the students spend 6 months from January to June full time in a research lab environment doing a research project. And then after June, that's when you write up your project and prepare your presentations.
Okay, that's really useful again. So the actual structures of those courses that can be quite different between schools. So to those of our attendees that are watching, do check out. I'm sure lots of this information is on our website. So do make sure you kind of take a look at how that course structure works for you, and look at the makeup of your program, and that can vary quite significantly from one university to another. So I think it's really key to delve into some of those details. So that's really, really helpful to get an idea of how it operates in each of your areas. And then something actually, maybe a slight curveball, hopefully nothing too much off piece, but touching on kind of the support maybe that's available, in terms of perhaps having supervisors, personal tutors. What's the kind of support systems like at postgraduate in comparison to perhaps your undergraduate personal tutors, maybe your dissertation supervisors from your third year of your undergraduate? But how does that kind of change, or what does Leicester have in place for you as a postgrad?
I mean, just speaking for psychology, so our students in their first year will all be allocated a personal tutor. And then when it comes to their dissertation, sort of partway through the second year, that personal tutor role switches to the dissertation supervisor. I mean, it may be the same person or it may not. So in that sort of first year and a half, your personal tutor is there to just keep a check on how you're doing. They'll get all the information about your grades, any periods of suspense, any mitigating circumstances or challenges. And they're really there to give you that sort of academic support around, how to complete your studies and advice on those kind of things. And then to say it switches to the dissertation supervisor, really, because you're going to be working quite closely with them. We also have a senior tutor on our programs as well. So should there be any issues, and there is somebody else to kind of speak to. And in the last sort of 2 years, we've actually introduced monthly personal tutor sessions. So we run a sort of recorded session we cover study skills and also wellbeing. So each month there's a different topic. So it might be so for example, we've got one on resilience and wellbeing. We've got one on juggling different responsibilities. We've got one on how to understand and interpret your feedback on your assessments. So the students get the opportunity to watch that monthly, and then one of the main personal tutors will run a kind of drop-in session on that if people have any questions once they've watched the recording. So that's alongside the kind of, actually being allocated a tutor. There are these we call them personal tutor sessions, but they're just run across the whole team. So that's how we approach it.
That's really great. And is that the same across both your distance learning and your campus as well?
We'll be running a similar program for campus-based students.
That's really great. It sounds like it's very involved. There's a structured process. There's lots of things going on, and all of those touch points as well, which I think is really key throughout different periods in the year when you're experiencing different sort of challenges maybe in your study.
Yeah, and I think as a team we've looked at it dynamically, because obviously we're all aware there's a lot going on in the world at the moment for people, and people have got different needs. So that's probably why we introduce more wellbeing related topics to our personal tutor sessions, as well as the study skills, because we're seeing students, needing more support in that area, and and more of an understanding around it, kind of juggling and how to sort of stay sane and how to stay healthy while you're juggling so many things. So we've perhaps in quite a unique position in psychology to be able to offer those sessions. But it's we have a great and I'm sure the other programs do. We have a sort of student rep system as well. So we have student representatives, and every 4 weeks we have a meeting with the student reps and our staff, and we try and respond quite dynamically to the issues that they bring, and which is where a lot of these initiatives kind of come from.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that the university, being involved with it when I was there as an undergraduate and as a postgraduate, actually we have that student representation, that student voice is really very valued. I remember, as a student, I've very much felt that things that I wanted to discuss, or perhaps things that the student body wanted to maybe change, like you said, you used the perfect word, Catherine. The university looked at this very dynamically, and they were really open to changing and working with students to really shape that experience for us. So it's definitely something I felt was reflected in my experiences as well. So maybe Stephanie or John, did you want to perhaps touch upon any sort of support mechanisms or systems that you might have in place?
Yeah, I mean, we do exactly the same in terms of personal tutoring. Every student has a personal tutor, encouraged to meet monthly, make sure everything, but there's contact in between as well. We've started up a shared induction program to introduce students to sort of the university and what's on offer within the university in terms of support, sort of at the beginning of the programs. So that's quite a useful opportunity. But we constantly remind students that these things exist throughout the course. And then most students, again, will swap to their project supervisors for the summer. So if they're on a full year master's course, they do the project in the last few months of the course. And that's when your project supervisor has very close contact with you and there to support you. But we also, we run some career sessions and opportunities for students to find out how they can get support once they start applying for jobs and PhDs. So there's lots of information there on helping you to fill in a CV or produce a CV and fill in sort of application forms and to take interviews.
Yes, yeah, we had a really nice webinar a couple of weeks back actually from our careers team, who kind of really talked in depth about the career development service alongside that as well. So obviously you have that in-school support with your kind of career progression, but equally the university has sort of the more centralized system that can support you with your application process as well. So you kind of, as a postgraduate, you can benefit from lots of different spheres of information, which I think is a really nice position to be in when you're looking at what's the next steps for me.
Yeah.
So in biological sciences, we also have a personal tutor system, so that you're assigned a personal tutor. But I think that sort of runs throughout the whole of the year. But in addition, the convener and deputy conveners of our courses act as almost act as personal tutors as well, as does your research project supervisor. So you end up having 4 people I know that will know you well enough to write references and to support applications going forward and to give you advice on your next steps of your career. So I think that's quite nice. You get to know at least 4 people pretty well.
Definitely, yeah. I think, again, postgraduate study, that difference from undergraduate is that knowledge of people within your school, within your departments, within your facilities is just, that networking actually internally is really useful too. And people have always been very supportive of that, I think, which is great. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to take a moment just to let all of our attendees know if they like to submit any questions, say hello, kind of let us know that you're enjoying the session or anything like that. That would be great. But you're more than welcome to ask any questions. We will have some time at the end, towards the end of the session. So if there are any specific things about courses you're inquiring about or maybe have applied for, then please, just let us know. That Q&A function is open there in the sort of top banner of your screen. We are sort of drawing towards the end of the session, but there are a couple of questions that I put on the ends of my document, that just one thing that continues to amaze you or inspire you in your area of expertise. This is just some of those questions at the end that I think are really nice discussion points, just to really get an idea of what sort of brought you into your area and what keeps you passionate about what you're doing.
How long have you got?
That's a great answer. That's really good, John. No, maybe give us a brief summary of the maybe top thing.
I mean, I love the way in the science I do how it's such a moving ballpark. So there are things which once were so specialized that I could never imagine being able to do, that now has become routine for us. And so interestingly, our master's student recently has put a sample into our cryo-electron microscope. That's a £4.5 million instrument, which I never thought that we would get in Leicester. So science moves forwards. There's always new questions. And I also love the flow through of young people coming through the labs, both undergraduate project students, master students, and PhD students. And we're training them to face that new world where everything is changing, and they're going to contribute to how things develop.
That's great. I can see again Catherine nodding along in agreement with John. Very in sync.
The session nodding, it sounds like, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm an occupational psychologist, and as I said, my area of work is workplace wellbeing, and I think since the pandemic, that area has just exploded. And talking about changing landscapes, John, the way in which we work. I mean, the fact that we run sessions like this, we're not all sat in a place in Leicester, but the impact of that on our health and our wellbeing, I think, is really important for us to understand more about. How do you manage people from a sort of management perspective, but also managing it as human beings, I think is really important. And I think looking more broadly in psychology, we know that there are a lot of people that are really struggling at the moment, really struggling with mental health, really struggling maintaining their families, really, and I think there are a lot of areas of sort of that are real pain points for people. And I think psychology has a lot to contribute there. And I learn so much from our students, and I know the team would say the same, and particularly our postgraduate students, because they come in with such a diverse range of experiences. My previous career was in consultancy, and then I came into academia. So just to learn what people's workplaces are like outside of higher education, what their life experiences are like, studying when you've got young children, studying when you're maybe got young children and you're caring for your parents and you're also trying to progress your own career, learning about all of those issues, I think really helps us to shape our own research and our own focus really in terms of doing stuff that really matters. So yeah, that's what gets me out of bed in the mornings, I suppose.
That's great. That's really, really great. And I think, yeah, that seems like quite a shared experience actually from people I speak to across the university, is that sense of community, that sense of understanding of the people around us. Definitely. So Stephanie, I'll hand over to you for that last point.
Well, I'm a statistician, so most of my work is looking at data, and I think throughout my career, I think it's probably the computational power that we've got has increased so much. I mean, it was fairly limited when I did my master's about what we could actually do using a computer, and the amount of data that we now have access to, the computational power, means that there are constantly new methods, statistical methods that need to be developed. So there's always something to look at. There are different sorts of data. There are different research questions that need answering. And we always need evidence-based medicine and research. So the data always informs this. So you can get involved in all sorts of different areas on things that you would never thought about previously. But the challenges we're getting more and more data become that the data is messier, more complex. So it has its challenges. So, we can see things moving on. We do think about lots of machine learning now, but I think you still need a statistician in the background to manage that, particularly in terms of health. So you need to know what the data is showing and what the problems and limitations of it are. So that's my thoughts on what I enjoy.
No, that's great. It's really nice to hear like sort of different viewpoints across different schools and different lines of thought, which is lovely. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of pose my last kind of question to you and give you a bit of time to think about it. So it's just to sum up master's study at the University of Leicester in 1 to 2 words, or sum up the University of Leicester in a few words, really. So it's going to be a sort of a final impacting statement. So I'll give you a moment to have a think about it. And in the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share I have a slide just to give our attendees a bit more information about where they can find more details. So I'm just going to share my screen with that. So I'll give you guys a second. I won't put you completely on the spot with that. Fantastic. So can you see that okay? It's just to let anyone who's kind of watching know what's next, what's taking place. And so we have these postgraduate spotlights across the remainder of the week, so all the way through till Friday. You can find out more about other subjects as well. And if you scan the QR code on the right-hand side of the slide, you'll be able to kind of book onto any additional sessions. They will all be of similar format to this. But yeah, please do kind of tune in if there are any other subjects or topics that you kind of feel interested to learn a bit more about. As I mentioned at the start of the session, these are being recorded, so they will be out soon on YouTube, so you can catch up on any that you miss. And then also just to let you know that applications for our postgraduate courses are open, and we really recommend that if you are looking to apply sooner rather than later. The deadlines are outlined on the course pages. And again, you'll find all of that information, entry requirements, funding, scholarship opportunities. You'll find all of that throughout our postgraduate pages on the University of Leicester website. So if you follow the website at the bottom, www.le.ac.uk/study/postgraduates, you'll kind of get to our main page where you can search for a course. So any of the courses that you've heard about today and others that will be taking place throughout the week as well, you'll be able to search for those on there and find out more detail, more information, and also some contact details too. You can also see on the slide I've put there that there's the opportunity to chat to our students and staff. So you can send a message to one of our friendly ambassadors or members of staff, including myself, my colleague Sam, and also some of our panel members today. And you can find some student blogs on there as well, which is really great to get a bit of insight from students who are currently studying at the University of Leicester and what their thoughts are of the city, the place, and the university campus, accommodation, and other things as well. So I'm going to keep that on the screen, pop it in that format. And I'm going to reopen this up, and I'm just going to open up then to my questions. So yeah, can you sum up kind of master's study or postgraduate study more generally, or the University of Leicester in sort of 1 or 2 words or a few words? I'll be lenient for a Monday.
Shall I go first?
Absolutely, John, take it away.
So I would say Leicester is extremely welcoming and extremely supportive to our master's students. And I would also say that what you do will be part of transformative research, but it's not only transformative research, but it will also transform you. You will know what you want to do next and whether research is your thing. And you'll have a great ride, great experience.
That's great. Thank you, John. Catherine or Stephanie, who wants to take up the next one?
I was going to say, John has said most of it
Yeah.
in his few words, but just sort of focusing perhaps on our area, it probably covers all of the areas within our college, is that the master's programs are research inspired and they're all aiming to improve population health and well-being.
Yeah, definitely. They are. I think that's one of the key things why we wanted to kind of put on these sessions, to really tie in our master's study with research. So absolutely hitting the nail on the head, I think, with that, Stephanie. And Catherine, over to you for sort of the final remarks.
I think for me, postgraduate student studies, whether it's at Leicester or it is an empowering process. It empowers you as a human being to get that next level qualification. But I think one of the things, when I'm a Leicester alumni, as we've alluded to, Stephanie, a Leicester alumni, I think you are really joining an important and impactful community as a postgraduate student at Leicester. And, that's a connection that perhaps is, I would say for me, definitely has been lifelong. And I know for many others, it's been lifelong. And I think that's a really nice thing to be part of.
That's great. And I think, so we did have a question come through on the chat, just as our kind of final, I guess, couple of points. How do the programme stay updated with the latest advancements of research in the field of human health? And I think thinking of this when I've just read it now is very much that you as the researchers and the postgraduate research students and everyone as that whole sort of school level is how the postgraduate studies are, the postgraduate courses are informed, by taking that knowledge that we do have at institutional level and bringing that into our courses. So I don't know if anyone has any kind of direct things. I know Stephanie, you perhaps talked about the diabetes sort of programme and how that links really closely with our research outputs, but
yeah, I think all of the programs review what they teach every year and look at what's new and what should be included. And we work with industry as well to find out what they're doing and what recent advancements are, to make sure that we do keep everything up to date. So I think that's key.
Yeah, definitely. And it was really nice. Lewis sent us a lovely message saying, "Hi, enjoying the session, very informative and insightful." So that's really great to hear. So I think what we'll do is we'll sort of wrap things up. But yeah, please do kind of keep in touch with the University of Leicester, contact us. Our details are all sort of based online, and as I said, you can chat to us there too. But we're there to support with a whole different range of things. So whether that's going out and reaching out to each school for kind of more specific information, perhaps you have some circumstances that you'd like to discuss, whether that's for distance learning study, campus-based study, but equally reach out to kind of our careers teams, our sort of admissions teams as well. They'll be really supportive throughout the process. We've got some great infrastructure as well for those of you who are international students who are inquiring. So from our visa application side of things, our English language teaching unit. So do take your time to do your research thoroughly and browse the website in order to kind of get the questions that you need. There's normally places to signpost you to somebody that can answer your specific question. So thank you very much for that. And just, I guess the last thing is just to thank Stephanie, Catherine, John. Thank you so much today for your time. I really appreciate that. I feel like it's been a really insightful discussion for me. It's something I've really enjoyed doing, so I hope you've enjoyed it as well. And yes, I really, really thank you for that. And I hope that all of our attendees who have watched today have enjoyed the session too, and just found out a bit more about kind of Leicester and our ethos and our community sort of spirit. So thank you very much for that. I'm just going to shut the session off now. So yes, enjoy the rest of your day.